Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 horror movies of 2023. Yes, it's the end of the year where all the lists come out, and I've already done my top 10 most anticipated horror movies for 2024, and I'm going to have a couple of more coming. My top 5 most disappointing and my top 5 most surprising horror movies, and I'm also going to be looking to do a full ranking of every horror movie I watched from worst to best. So look out for all that. I'll leave the links down below to my other top 10 list if you want to check them out. And just a quick heads up here, this is just my list. I mean, everyone's going to have a different list. There are going to be movies that people have as their best of the year that might be a little bit lower on my list. We're all different. I've seen people say that my number 1 is their worst horror movie of the year. So that will just tell you everything. Now, I'm not including Godzilla -1 in this list. I hummed and hawed over it. I just don't think it qualifies as a full horror movie, even though IMDb says that it is and Letterboxd says that it isn't. Just me personally, I didn't feel right putting it in a horror movie list. I think it's more of an action, adventure, sci-fi movie. But not going to argue with anyone who thinks it is horror. It is subjective, I suppose, that movie, because Godzilla is quite terrifying. But if it was on this list, I'd probably have it at number 2. So there's my thoughts on Godzilla -1. So let's just get into it now with number 10. Coming in 10th place is going to be When Evil Lurks. I did a lot of buzz about this movie before it came out with the early reviews and stuff, so when it came to Shudder, I decided to check it out straight away. Now, this is a cool twist on demonic possession. It's not your typical demonic possession movie where characters are just tied to a bed, screaming obscenities here and there. This does it in a lot more of a clever way, and one in a way that I'd never really seen before. So, demonic possession is known to the world here in this movie, but it's a rarity, and this one character is possessed, and this cleaner is sent in to deal with him, because normal people aren't allowed to deal with these possessed characters, because if they do, it can make the virus worse. And this cleaner is sent in to deal with this character, but he is killed on the way there. So these characters in the town decide to just drop this, possessed character off 3 miles out of town, and that'll be the end of it. But it does, in fact, make things a hell of a lot worse and leads to other characters killing possessed characters, which just make the virus spread even more. Now, I don't want to say too much more than that because the movie is quite clever where it goes, and there's a few twists and turns along the way. So many what the fuck moments as well. And it isn't scared to cross the line when it comes with killing certain characters, i.e., kids and stuff in this movie. The horror and the gore, just go for it. And there are certain moments where characters are just full-on shocked in this movie, but you're watching the movie and you have the same expression as the shocked character that has, because some of the things that happen here are just really, sinister. And I just think the movie knows what it is. It knows it's a full-on horror movie. It doesn't try and just tone it down or anything. It just goes for it. And, it's an Argentinian movie, so you're going to get something a little bit different than your usual Hollywood film here. And if you're a massive horror fan, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this channel, I definitely think this is worth giving a go. In a world where the subgenre of demonic possession is overpopulated, really, we get a generic one every few months, don't we? This one is something different in the subgenre and offers something fresh and new. So in 10th place is going to be When Evil Lurks. In 9th place, we're going to have Totally Killer. Now, this was one of the most entertaining movies I watched this year. This uses the concept of Back to the Future, really, and sees this young girl who lives in a town where these killings happened like 30 years ago, and then the killings start to come back again, and then they never actually caught the killer back in the day, so this killer is still roaming free, and her mother is actually killed by this killer, and she ends up going back in time to try and stop this killer and save her mother for eventually what's going to happen to it in the future, really. But this is a really fun horror comedy that balances it out really well. It was really, really funny at times, but it had some great kills in there. And I just thought it was a nice concept. Like I said, Back to the Future is mentioned a few times here in the movie, so it knows exactly what it's doing. There was some really funny dialogue, like there were certain scenes where people were just horrible to this girl, played by Keenan Shipka, I think that was her name, and she put in a really good performance. Actually, I thought she was a fun character to get behind. But there are characters here, more notably her mother, when she's younger, who doesn't actually know it's going to be her future daughter, is just talking to her like she's an absolute piece of shit, and she realises how horrible her mother was back in the day. I just thought moments like that were really fun, and it was good to guess along what was going to happen. Now, I must admit, it was a little bit predictable in the end, but there was also something I didn't see coming, so I appreciated that. And, you know, it was just a really fun movie to watch and have fun with. You know, it knows it's not a masterpiece. It knows it's not, you know, breaking the barrier of, you know, new horror, but it is still an interesting concept to use. And I think a lot more movies could do with this Back to the Future concept, because it's a fun one to get behind. And I like the way they throw horror in there with that concept. So for me, Totally Killer was an awesome time, and I just had a lot of fun with it. So in ninth place is Totally Killer. Coming in eighth place is going to be Hell House LLC Origins: The Carmichael Manor. Now, this is a movie that I'd have to check out, because the original was one of the creepiest films I've ever seen. This is all found footage, but I was sort of on the fence with, like, am I going to like this movie or not? Because Stephen Cognetti has made all of these Hell House movies, and like I said, he'd done a great job with the original, but the second movie was such a step down, and I hated the direction he took with that. It kind of took all the creepy mystery out the movie and tried to tell a story of what actually happened, and it just didn't really work for me. And I never checked out the third one, Lake of Fire, I think it's called, because I was so put off with the second one. And my cousin is a fan of the first movie, but he said 3 is even worse than 2. And I just never got round to it. But with this one, I'd heard a lot of people say it's actually on par with the original. So I went and checked it out, and it is. And in fact, it might actually be scarier than the original, because this, for me, is by far the scariest movie of the year. Now, people are going to find out what's scary and what's not. It is subjective what you are scared by. But I got to admit, there were times where I was holding onto a pillow in front of my face, because I was just like, oh my God, what is going on here? I turned to my wife while we were watching it, and she was like, this is horrible to watch. It's, you know, it's just so creepy. And it really did bring the series back, you know, to as good as the original was. And the original might be a little bit better, but I'm just glad that he's picked it back up here, because Stephen Cognetti can really make found footage work. Some of the creepiest moments in the entire series, you know, where the hallway scene with that girl, and this guy is the only person in the house, and there's this girl down the hallway looking around the corners. There's a scene where someone is on a laptop, and each image she clicks on the laptop is behind her, and it's getting closer to her with a great payoff. It's basically just one of them movies that, you know, works. It uses the found footage aspect and delivers it and executes it so well. So it's your typical ghost hunting film. It's just 3 people going to stay in this supposed haunted mansion, and it is in fact haunted. But I just thought this force that they were dealing with was so evil, and it just has so many scary moments. Like, there was people in my work who I recommended this movie to, and they came in the next day and went, yeah, that movie terrified me. So it isn't just me who thinks it. A lot of other people I've recommended it to as well think this is a terrifying movie, and it is. So in 8th place is Hell House LLC: The Carmichael Manor. Next up, we have a movie called Cobweb, which was a movie that came out of nowhere, really, and one that I thoroughly enjoyed because it felt a little bit different. I like it when horror does something different and brings a fresh new story to the table, basically. And this sees this young boy who, he's got very strict parents, and they kind of don't let him do things and stuff like that. But he thinks there's something living in the walls of his house, because he's hearing this character kind of knock from the inside of the walls, and when he tells his mother and father about it, they're just like, oh no, just ignore it, there's no one in the walls, you're imagining things. and his life is really on the downside. There's people who aren't very nice to him or whatever, and his teacher kind of takes, attention to that and tries to help him along the way. And the third act of the movie sort of unveils everything, and I thought it was quite clever. I mean, I think the third act could have turned out a little bit better, but the whole mystery of the movie, what is going on here, keeps you guessing, throws things from left, right, and center. Just kind of, you think you know where it's going, and you don't really, basically. But the parents of this character, I can't remember the female mother's name. She was off Mean Girls. But the character of the father, Anthony Starr, them two play great part. There's a moment where this teacher comes to the house to speak to them, and it's one of the scariest movie moments of the year, because you kind of don't know what's going to happen. You're like, oh my god, what's the history of these two characters? It's just so tense, well built tension in the scene and for the whole movie as well. But for me, I just thought this was something that really kept me engaged until the end. And I really felt for the young guy in this movie, the young character. I thought he was a great actor, but he's a character that you really do feel sorry for and you want better in life, because he's going through a rough time. But for me, I thought this was an awesome movie, and, one that came out of nowhere and has made my top 10, and that's always great when that happens. So in 7th place is Cobweb. Coming in 6th place is going to be Talk to Me, the directional debut of the Raka brothers. I think it's Michael and Daniel Philippou. I hope that's right. But this is again another fresh concept on the demonic possession subgenre. So we kind of had two of them movies this year, with When Evil Lurks, and this doing something different, not just characters lying on a bed screaming things. And this sees a group of friends who have this monkey paw type hand, and when you shake it, you say talk to me, and you can kind of be possessed for that 90 minutes, or you see these ghosts and stuff, that 90 seconds, sorry. But the characters kind of don't want it to go over this 90-second mark, because things can spiral out of control, and they're having parties with this thing. Everyone's taking turns and stuff like that. And then one character kind of holds on to it for too long, and it goes down a very sinister path. And I really liked it when they were shaking hands and they were seeing these demons and stuff like that. Or the makeup design was awesome, and the directional choices in some scenes were really smart. I thought really visually pleasing movie. Sophie Wilde is probably gave my favorite performance in any horror movie this year. I thought she was an awesome character to get behind. Really, she's not perfect, kind of like the final girl in Evil Dead 2013 was. She's not all sweet and innocent. There's sides to her that, you kind of can't get behind, and you want her to be a better person. I like it when movies do that. But it just had a really interesting story. I was engaged from start to finish. Really liked how it played out as well. And for me, I was just totally surprised by this film. I went to a scream unseen, where you don't know what you're going to see at the cinema, and it was in fact Talk to Me, and I was just like that at the end of the movie. Wow, thank you for something a little bit different there. Such an awesome time, and a 90-minute movie as well. We don't get too many of them these days, do we? But everything was just put in there, make the runtime perfectly go by, and after it I just thought, what a great film. So in 6th place is Talk to Me. Number 5 might be a surprise to some people here, but it is Knock at the Cabin, M. Night Shyamalan's latest film. And the reason I kind of love this movie, I watched it and I thought, you know what, that was good. And then all the way home, I was just thinking about the film, and it was stuck in my head. It kind of happened with Malignant a couple of years ago, where I thought it was good, and then I thought about it more, and then I realised how great it actually was. And I kept talking to my wife that night about how good the movie was. And it just made me realise that I really loved this movie. Now, this sees this couple and their adopted kid, this gay couple and this adopted kid they've got. And they go to stay at this cabin in the woods, basically. And then Dave Bautista, who's probably give his best performance, well, one of his best performances. Drax is a great character, so it's up there with him. Really got into the role here. And he knocks at this cabin and says, look, one of you is going to have to die, otherwise the world will end. And he's knocking with these 3 other characters. And they are all in agreement that one of these characters has to die, otherwise the world will end. And you know what? One of the characters is sort of like, you're crazy, we're not doing that. And the other character, the other couple, is kind of like listening to them and thinking they might be telling the truth. And it's kind of like that movie Frailty. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you know, one kid believes the father and the other kid believes his father's insane, and you're kind of on each shoulder. You kind of don't know which person to side with, and that's the same in Knock at the Cabin. You're kind of with one character going, these guys are crazy, but they might be actually telling the truth as well. And I liked how the movie played on that concept, how it all unravels. And what M. Night Shyamalan is great at, he done it with Signs, is that he can make an event happen, but we are confined in this one area. Like, things can be happening on the outside, but we only see it from this one location. And I think he does that really well. He can keep the movie on a very low budget by telling, but still telling a great story. And there were some really dark moments in here, some great death scenes. Loved seeing Rupert Grint in this movie as a villain. I thought he was awesome. I would like to see him do more of them roles. And I just loved, you know, the whole story and the concept here. My only problem is that Shyamalan didn't throw a twist ending in. Maybe the twist was there wasn't a twist, but I think that movie just needed that special ending. I think a lot more people would have thought a hell of a lot more of this movie. But for me, I still quite liked it. So in 5th place is Knock at the Cabin. In 4th place, we do have Thanksgiving. I watched all of Eli Roth's movies this year leading up to this one, done a full Eli Roth ranking, and Thanksgiving has actually come 3rd in that ranking, just behind the 2 Hostel movies. Now, this, again, a bit like Totally Killer, is a perfect balance of horror comedy. I was laughing my ass off at one moment, and the next minute I was like, holy shit, the gore fest here. It just goes for it with the kills. But this sees this Black Friday event where lots of people are rushing into this store, and a few people are killed here and there. And this killer called John Carver, that's not the name of the unveiled character, it's just the name of the murderer that the town refers to him as. So I haven't given the ending away there. Is basically gonna seek revenge for some of the characters that died in that Black Friday event the year after. And these characters who are involved in that are getting picked off one by one. And the movie uses social media and stuff to show these characters that this killer is coming for them. Like, he's got this table with all their names on, and as he's killing each character off, he's sending them photos of like a decapitated head and stuff like that, where the name is, and they know they're coming next. Some really cool kill scenes in this movie. There's one with a trampoline and a knife that was like, holy shit. There are people being cooked in ovens. I mean, John Carver is an awesome killer, you know, and one that could hopefully go on to be a bit more of a horror icon. We've already got a Thanksgiving 2 announced by L.A. Roth himself on Twitter. So I would love to see more of this character. It let him and Art the Clown lead the way for iconic slasher villains going forward. But I really do think this is worth checking out. It's such a fun movie. Had sort of a same vibe as the Scream movies, really. Like I said, with the horror, the comedy, just totally blends together. But for me, I just had such an entertaining time with this movie at the cinema. Could have went either way for me. I was going in going, is this going to be any good? I don't know. But it's one that Americans especially can watch every November now. So it's good to have another holiday slasher there. I had a great time with this. So Eli Roth, can't wait for the second one. Great job on Thanksgiving. Coming up next is Evil Dead Rise in 3rd place. Now, this is a horror franchise that doesn't really have a bad movie attached to it now, does it? And I think this one is somewhere in the middle ground there of, you know, being the best Evil Dead movie. And I've done a full ranking of this as well. I'm just going to read my ranking playlist down below, along with some 2023 movie reviews, because I have reviewed some of these films in this list. So go down and check that out. But Evil Dead Rise, what I liked about this is the location change. There's a lot of these movies that just do it in the cabin, 3 to be exact. And this one takes place in a skyscraper. It takes the usual theme of the Evil Dead by just having these demonites break out in a small location. And even though this is a skyscraper, we're confined to this one room because characters are kind of locked in because these demonites are outside trying to get in. And you may know by the poster now that the mother is the first of these demonites to be, characters to be possessed by the demonites, and Alicia Sutherland played her brilliantly. One of the best performances of the year in horror for me. And she's just trying to get in to this apartment block where her kids are holed up with a couple of other characters there. And you know what? I heard a lot of people say they didn't like the characters in this movie, but I genuinely cared for these kids. And I thought, I really wanted them to survive and not get caught by the mother and stuff like that. Some really gruesome moments in this movie. You may have all seen the cheese grater scene. I mean, I've never seen that be used as a weapon in a movie before, but now we have it. There's a first for everything, I suppose. Some really cool directional choices here. One of my favourite moments of the year in horror was the peephole, where one of the young kids was looking through the peephole at the possessed mother outside, and the possessed mother's going, "Come on, let me in now," trying to entice the kid into believing her. But there's just like blood and stuff spattered around the keyhole, and then all hell starts to break loose outside, and we see it through the keyhole. Goes full on gore fest in the third act, like Evil Dead should. Carries all them Evil Dead tropes with blood on the face, chainsaws here and there. And I thought, you know what a great time. I'm glad we got this at the cinemas, because apparently it was going to go straight to video, but the first reactions of audiences who got to see the first screens loved it that much, they decided to put it on the cinema. And I'm so happy for that. And I think Bruce Campbell has actually come out and said there's actually going to be more Evil Dead films. So let's hope this franchise continues with its consistency. So in third place is Evil Dead Rise. In second place is going to be Scream 6. Yes, I know a lot of people might be like, what, really? But I actually think this is my favourite sequel after Part 4, which again is another hot take, really. Part 4 is a great sequel, I think. But then I'd probably have this one in there as my second favourite Scream sequel, really. Now, I was totally surprised how much I enjoyed this film. Don't get me wrong, I like all the movies, but I wasn't massive on Part 5. But I just think this was a huge step up. And again, like Evil Dead, this is a consistent franchise with so many good movies in, and I'm glad to say Scream 6 continued that. Love the opening of this film, where we kind of know who the Ghostface is. I've always wanted a Scream movie to do that, where we know who the Ghostface is, and the characters in the movie don't, where it kind of switches roles. Unfortunately, it does give that up after like 10 minutes and goes into its own thing, but I just thought the Ghostface in this was awesome. Some real great one-liners, it's the real dark, black, haunting comedy is in there, and that just totally works. I love hearing this character's voice on the phone to people and stuff. He just cracks me up. There is a scene that is one of the best Scream moments in the entire franchise, where Ghostface is in a convenience store and he's got a shotgun and stuff, and he's just stabbing people up at the same time, and then gets a shotgun, starts shooting people. I was like, oh, holy shit, this is great. Now, I will admit, in the third act, it does go downhill a little bit. The reveals are kind of comedic and animated and cartoonish-like, but I'm not going to let that take away for how much I enjoyed the first hour of the movie, really. There's so many great scenes as well, like not just the supermarket scene, but where one character is on a train and everyone's in fancy dress on this train, and it kind of, the lights keep flickering on and off on this train and in the subway, and she's sort of thinking there's Ghostface on this train. I thought that was a really well built up scene with the tension and everything like that. So for me, I really loved Scream 6. I really had a great time with it, and I've got it in second place. So I know a lot of people don't think this is one of the better sequels, but for me, it is. So in second place is Scream 6. Coming in first place is going to be Infinity Pool. Now, I've actually heard people on social media and stuff say that this is their least favourite horror movie of the year. I can't quite believe that, but then again, movies are subjective, and I suppose this movie isn't for everyone. But worst of the year? Well, I've got it at number 1 as my best of the year. Now, this is a really hard film to describe without giving away any spoilers. I'm going to try and refrain from doing that as much as possible. But basically, we've seen Alexander Skarsgård and his wife, I think it is, go to this really nice tropical island, basically, and they meet another couple who is Mia Goth and her husband, and they go out for a night on the town with them and stuff like that. And on the way back, something happens where you can be put to death for what happened here. And Alex Skarsgård can't quite believe that he might be put to death or put on death row because of the laws of this island. Now, I can't say too much more than this, but it goes in a direction that I didn't quite see coming, and it was a concept I have never seen done before, and it really cool sci-fi horror movie. Brandon Cronenberg delivered an absolute brilliant movie here, and I am so eager to check out his other films now. I should have watched Possessor by now. I know he made another one in 2012, I believe, which sounds really cool as well. But they are two movies high on my watch list now after seeing this. I think the guy has got a real eye for direction. Some really lovely shots that he has in here in this movie. And Mia Goth is just an absolute superstar who makes this film. Like, she is such a wonderful actress, and I will pay to see anything this woman is in. And she is fantastic here. She's a sinister character at times, but she's also a charming character. She's got a whole mystery side to her, like a lot of the characters in this movie. Like I said, it's hard to talk about too many characters and the concept without giving away what is actually going on here, but you are intrigued from start to finish. You can't take your eyes off the screen, and I was mesmerized by it. The movie absolutely flew by because I was just so invested, and it probably has my favorite horror movie scene of the entire year in here, with Mia Goth just doing some crazy faces, holding a gun to a certain character and shouting these things at him, man. Can't say too much. Really hard film to describe without spoilers, but just go into this film knowing as least as possible as you can, because it's something you haven't seen before. I certainly haven't seen it before, and just a movie that blew me away. I absolutely loved Infinity Pool. So in first place is Infinity Pool. Okay guys, hope you all enjoyed this video. Like I said, no honorable mentions here or anything today. I'm going to be looking to rank my entire horror movie list from worst to best, so look out for that. Look out for my top 5 most disappointing, top 5 most surprising. And don't forget to check out my top 10 most anticipated films. What are your top 10 horror movies of the year? Leave them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you all, I promise. What did you think of my list? Do you agree? Did you disagree? Let me know. Thanks so much everyone. You take care, and I'll see you on the next video.